Okay, let's unpack this deep dive. We've got some truly fascinating pages in front of us today. Excerpts from the book Ghosted by Shaughnessy Bishop Stall.
Yeah, really interesting stuff.
And this isn't, a standard deep dive into factual reporting. We're diving into a world that reads like a novel, following a character named Mason through a period of, well, intense struggle.
That's right. Think of these pages as our source material for exploring a fictional reality. We're looking at the narrative itself, the characters, the events, the details as the facts we need to understand.
Right, the facts of this story.
Exactly.
And the author even sets the stage right away, suggesting you read it under the influence of Bob Seger's Fire Lake, that slightly high-low, haunting kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you immediately this isn't going to be a straightforward ride.
It signals the tone, doesn't it? A mix of gritty reality, introspection, and perhaps something a little, I don't know, off-kilter or spectral hovering beneath the surface.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is to be your guides through these specific pages you've shared. We're going to pull out the key narrative elements, the character beats, the symbols that pop up, and the themes that emerge.
Yeah, try and make sense of it.
We want to help you understand what's most important in this section of Mason's story and why it matters within the text itself.
We'll be connecting the dots, highlighting the moments that stand out, and exploring what they might reveal about Mason and the strange world he's navigating, all based only on the material you've given us.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? You've provided the map in these pages, and we're going to help you spot the crucial landmarks, the surprising turns, and the underlying currents, giving you a shortcut to being well-informed about this particular text.
Get ready for a journey into a world that feels both raw and oddly dreamlike.
Yeah, let's dive in. So where does our journey with Mason begin in these pages you've shared?
Yeah.
We find him in an apartment, seemingly in Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
which belongs to his friend Chaz.
He's taking in the space, noting the two large windows overlooking Spadina Avenue and another looking out onto a tarmac roof. It's pretty Spartan, just the basics, like an oak desk, a burgundy couch, chairs, a TV, shelving.
Sort of waiting for Mason's things, it says.
Yeah, described as waiting for Mason's things.
But the table tells a different story, doesn't it? It's got the signs of a recent heavy night, an almost empty bottle of Johnny Walker Black,
Right.
2 glasses, a rolled-up 20, an ashtray overflowing with ashes, some white residue, playing cards, poker chips.
And Mason immediately links it to having lost bet poker to Chaz.
Yeah, straight away.
That instantly grounds us in his reality debt, substance use, a recent interaction that sounds, well, fraught.
Definitely.
His first actions seem almost attempts at normalcy. Getting water, struggling with a coffee maker.
Too many buttons, he notes.
Right. Settling for water from the fridge, sitting on the couch to write. Even the small detail of his green boxers with penguins feels like an effort to assert some kind of, mundane existence. Host, speaker. And that to-do list, the first item is shaving his scruffy beard. He needs a tool, and what does he use? His knife.
Yeah.
Host, speaker. There's a little moment there that feels telling, isn't it? He's using a potentially dangerous tool for a simple grooming task. It suggests a lack of conventional tools, perhaps, or maybe a readiness for something sharper, even in mundane moments.
Could be.
He notes his cheeks sting an hour later while he's watching Judge Judy and eating an orange. That combination of everyday life and lingering discomfort is striking.
He's 30, and his reflection on watching TV, nothing makes sense. The courtroom makes him sad or angry, gives us a peek into his unsettled state. He's already feeling disconnected.
And Chaz has apparently filled him in on the apartment's past floor-to-ceiling mirrors for belly dancers, which Chaz then stripped back to brick. Mason pictures Toronto girls dancing there. It adds this layer of history and latent sensuality to the space.
After shuffling cards for a while, he leaves, abandoning his plan to grab another orange. He's physically present, but already mentally elsewhere.
The view from his window really cements the environment he's in. He sees bars, Cantonese restaurants, and notably the new MHAD building.
Yeah, the Mental Health, Alcohol, and Drug Center.
Right on the corner.
And it's not just the static buildings. The streets below are alive with a specific kind of urban energy. Protesters shouting about sharks.
Sharks are great, but not on your plate.
Right. People selling DVDs and fortune cookies on blankets, deals happening in doorways. It's a raw, busy, perhaps desperate streetscape that's juxtaposed with Mason's internal state.
This setting feels significant right on the corner of Help, but surrounded by chaos and the very things Mason seems to be struggling with. It's a powerful opening image for his time here.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And immediately, we're introduced to something equally strange. The dog father thing.
Yes, this hot dog company idea tied to Chaz's Uncle Fishy, described rather gently as a bit simple, but family, with a large extended network.
All sorts of family, it says.
Right. The concept is a theme thing, a state-of-the-art, pseudo-mafioso hot dog stand kind of thing called the Dogmobile.
It sounds completely over the top based on the description. A three-wheeled hybrid truck, all chrome, with a remote control serving window, a sink, grill, cooler, electronic cash register.
Even a surveillance camera?
And then there's that giant hollow fiberglass fedora hat on top for storage,
Yeah.
labeled the dog father.
It's cartoonish, almost aggressively theatrical, and yet it's Mason's reality here.
Yeah.
Chaz acts like Mason just arrived in Toronto, even though it's been a month, gives him a cell phone, and keeps putting things on his tab.
Creating this immediate financial and social entanglement makes Mason feel embarrassed about rent, the text says. Which leads Mason to make some clear resolutions. He's going to sell hot dogs, write his novel at night, get a Y membership, exercise, pay Chaz back for everything, damages, rent, gambling debts.
Right.
He decides he's going to be virtuous, clean, charming.
5 years was long enough, he thinks, suggesting a period he desperately wants to put behind him.
But how does Chaz immediately respond to this stated desire for virtue?
By tossing him a baddie of Coke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chaz tells him not to buy from others, says it makes me look bad, and adds the Coke to Mason's tab. That's 300 hot dogs.
Wow.
Mason's internal reaction is telling. He sees it as just like Chaz doing favors, even when he's pissed off.
It reframes the drug as a transaction within their complex relationship, almost a gift with strings attached.
Yeah, exactly.
He picks up the Coke, dumps his duffel, gathers his notebooks, turns on his computer, which makes a ghostly sound.
Another little detail, right?
Another little sonic detail hinting at the title and themes. The drug is instantly woven into his writing life, his debts, his friendships.
We get a glimpse of him actually working the dogfather cart and interacting with his first customer.
Right.
A man in a business suit.
Right?
The man comments on how clean and new the cart is, asks, why is it a hat? Finding it contained but doesn't really get it.
Meanwhile, Mason is physically struggling, sweating, a backache he connects to his heart and liver, thinking about organs regenerating.
Even in this simple interaction.
His body is betraying him, hinting at deeper physical consequences of his lifestyle.
And then we meet Warren. He's a large man in sunglasses who expresses a list of fears. What struck you about Mason's reaction to Warren?
Mason reflects that he usually finds neurotic people crazy, but Warren was different. He was confronting his fears.
Scared of heights, specifically.
Yeah, confronting his fears even as his life became dangerous in other ways. Stilettos, worms, broken tire jacks. The text lists them.
Weird list.
It is. Mason sees something in Warren's embrace of discomfort that resonates with his own past choices, deciding middle-class life would make him soft, setting out for trauma himself.
He sees himself as a drunken, traumatized, 30-year-old hot dog salesman writing love letters.
Which is quite a self-assessment.
Yeah. He's impressed by Warren commissioning a love letter to a woman named Carolina. Seeing it as a ballsy move that must be terrifying for Warren must freak him out.
This connects the idea of confronting fear not just to physical danger, but to emotional vulnerability, like writing a love letter. Mason attempts to write it, lighting a cigarette and candle, trying different narrative approaches, suggesting his writing process is as unsettled as his life.
Things then take a sudden, violent turn in the apartment. Mason wakes on the floor next to his bed.
Yeah, it shifts gears fast.
Something's under his head. His to-do list streaked with spittle and blood, with "Thanks for the party, chump," scrawled on the back.
Oof. The apartment looks like a disaster zone, hit by a meteor. The window is shattered, shards like tiger teeth. Glass everywhere, underwear, cigarette butts.
The TV's gone, a chair is smashed, and there are blood streaks from an earlier event, a bottle exploding, his legs cycling in wine and glass.
That imagery is incredibly visceral. And Mason notes it's no ordinary hangover. He's heaving blood and bile, feeling a sense of defeat, even death.
Rock bottom.
This is the rock bottom that makes him decide to finally seek professional help at a clinic on Yonge Street, one he'd been to before for a dog bite.
At the clinic, the doctor notes he says, really, a lot.
Interesting detail.
Diagnoses tonsillitis, gives him antibiotics, and a blue pamphlet with a chimpanzee.
The chimpanzee, okay.
But even with the diagnosis, his physical struggle continues. He can't reach the pharmacy, shaking, swirling, throwing up near a palm tree,
Oh, man.
and again against cold bathroom tiles after taking a pill.
And it doesn't stop there. On the way home, he throws up again in a grassy courtyard near his building, the back of the library visible, and collapses.
This whole sequence is a stark portrayal of physical and mental breakdown.
It is. But then, just after this collapse, there's a powerful shift in the narrative. He's on the Bloor Street Viaduct.
Right, the viaduct.
The text describes its scale, spanning highway lanes, railway tracks, power lines, a cycling path, the Don River. It's massive, like a third of a mile across, 131 feet high.
And as he walks it, something shifts internally. His queasiness passes, the world opens up. He can breathe, feels like he's standing in the middle of the air.
It's a moment of transcendence and clarity in the midst of all this physical and emotional wreckage.
Yeah, complete contrast.
It presents the viaduct as more than just a bridge. It's a place of perspective, even liberation, contrasting sharply with the confined, chaotic spaces he's been in.
And we get this quote from Soon's journals,
Soon.
linking the viaduct to a deadly sort of beauty born of despair, and describing people stepping towards the railing.
This introduces the viaduct's darker reputation, setting up its role in the events to come.
But then there's that incredibly striking detail about viaduct survivors. 68 survivor accounts and only one consistency. When I started to fall, I changed my mind.
That sentence really hangs in the air, doesn't it?
It does. Mason thinks about it on his walk home.
It suggests a final, instantaneous moment of choice, a flicker of the will to live, occurring even at the absolute edge. How does that resonate with Mason's own brush with death or defeat just moments before?
It feels like it's setting up a central question for Mason. Can someone change their mind even when they're already falling? This brings us directly to Soon, who contacts Mason via email.
Right, the emails.
From soonpaybe@gmail.com to ghostmason@hotmail.com. Subject, Dear Sir.
Soon is looking for a morbid scribe for hire, described as discreet, artistic, someone hesitant to use exclamation marks.
Which Soon then uses. I think it does.
Right. Soon is interested in ending it all. Just like that.
Mason's initial reaction, according to the text, is pragmatic and dismissive.
Yeah.
He pushes the check back, says he's not collaborating, citing his research into viaduct suicides. Faking one is impractical because bodies are found quickly due to the lack of water below.
But the project evolves. It becomes a bodiless suicide, requiring a location that could swallow a corpse.
Right, a different kind of disappearance.
Soon would disappear, and Mason would manage his legacy, embodying a character based on Mason's baser parts, a disheveled drifter, writer, lover of art. And Mason gets enrolled in Soon's summer class.
Mason's role goes beyond just the jump help. He's supposed to spin the narrative, make the public see Soon is a misunderstood genius, a savior who came in second.
He'd release the video. The text notes Mason tries to keep Soon focused on the money amidst all this artistic, suicidal talk.
We get fragments of Soon's background, his novel The Ghosts of Gauguin.
The Da Vinci Code meets Lord of the Flies. What a pitch.
Right. Soon also has a third breakdown on Mason's roof, blaming others, and a failure called The Wings of Hope. He prefers bridges for suicide locations over depressing places.
Suggesting a specific aesthetic or statement he's trying to make?
His art piece, Ghost Station, is located in Lower Bay Station, an abandoned subway stop. He uses found materials, described as the environment itself.
The sounds are surrounding subway lines, ambient, unknown. The projection is a virtual tunnel stretching into a black hole, described as both claustrophobic and limitless.
That contrast, claustrophobic and limitless, feels key to Soon's state of mind and perhaps the themes of the book.
Seems likely. He also had this idea for a lighting designer involving a CN Tower of Babel, another image of grand, perhaps doomed artistic ambition.
The text also notes Soon's breakdown on the roof and Mason's observation that it shouldn't be happening there, adding a layer of detached absurdity to the scene.
The climax of this collaboration is Soon's suicide attempt on the viaduct, captured on video. He leaves a message on the camera for anyone who finds it, specifically mentioning Mr. D.
Which connects later, yeah. Mason had the idea for the purple gypsy leather coat to be used like a cape or wings.
And the video shows him doing it unbuttoning, facing the camera, throwing the coat over the railing like wings, and stepping backwards with no harness visible.
He's even wearing a Soon t-shirt. It's performance art with a chillingly real outcome.
Mason's reaction is immediate and negative. He holds his breath watching, finds the camera with a dead battery but the digital card intact, and sees the purple coat snagged on the rocks below.
He didn't like this one bit.
The text makes it clear that this wasn't just a theoretical exercise. It had a tangible, disturbing end.
This trajectory, from Mason's breakdown to his involvement in Soon's art project, leads us into another set of deeply unsettling connections, particularly with the characters Willy and Seth Handyman.
Yeah, things get even stranger, if that's possible.
We first encounter Willy at the cave.
The text describes her vividly through a mirror reflection. Red, full lips, black ponytail, alabaster white skin that radiates blue in shadows, green eyes, pointed teeth.
And a bruise on her collarbone like a sea urchin. Large breasts. She smells of bubblegum and ashes.
Another mix of the sweet and the acrid. Striking.
Her condition is hemiplegia. She has no feeling on her right side. She needs help using the bathroom, and Mason tries, resulting in an awkward struggle where they tumble into the toilet.
Yikes. She wants water, specifically to be in water, asks about a bathtub, but accepts whiskey instead. And she delivers a blunt assessment of Mason. He is all fucked up.
She's not wrong, based on what we've seen. Mason takes her out. Lifting her onto his back to get down the stairs is difficult.
His legs burn, he slips, falls back 2 stairs, wrenches his shoulder.
He finds the dogmobile, which Chaz gave him, gets doers, and they ride to the Sheridan Plaza Hotel. He notes they were flying down the street and he'd been up for 2 days.
This image of Mason, injured, carrying Willy, fueled by exhaustion on the ridiculous dogmobile to a fancy hotel, captures the bizarre blend of the real and the surreal in the text.
It really does. At the hotel pool, he kisses her. She tastes like cantaloupe. They smoke heroin his first time, warned it hits harder, smoked, and drink whiskey.
Despite the grim context, Willy is happy, smiling about her right side being all function, no feeling, and that it got what it deserved.
Yeah, that's a chilling line.
What's so powerful about this moment is Mason's internal realization. He feels blown apart because he now knows she will never leave this room.
That feeling of fatalistic certainty about her future, tied to her physical condition and perhaps her lifestyle, is heartbreaking.
Yeah. She then asks for a story about his father, setting up another exchange of trauma.
Willy tells her own story from when she was 6, in her father's Scarborough apartment in 1985. She wakes to a fire in the bedroom. His bed is on fire.
Her father seems oblivious to her yelling. Violent femmes music is playing during this terrifying scene.
It's gone, Daddy. Gone. The love is gone.
Her father grabs her. They whoosh across the room. The fire's like tentacles. He turns back across the floor. They get outside 7 stories up, and he lunges over the railing with her.
Willy says, I don't know if he was trying to kill or save me. Mason holds her tight as she recounts this.
It's a brutal, unresolved moment of violence and trauma that echoes through her life. Just awful.
And just as Mason is processing this, Seth Handyman enters the picture via email. A matter of great importance to masond@hotmail.com from handyman@hotmail.com.
Seth believes Mason can help him. Mason's initial thought is to delete it, sick of suicidal people, linking Seth to the Soons situation.
But he doesn't. Mason does meet Seth at a bar playing Phil Collins' Susudio.
Right. Seth's appearance is unsettling. Floppy gray hat shadowing his eyes, longish gray hair, sallow skin, unshaven, wet lippy mouth, lanky hands, mid-40s, overweight.
Mason specifically notes he can't get a real fix on the eyes because of the hat. That detail seems important.
Yeah, it comes up again. Seth proposes playing pool for the truth instead. 1 question per ball sunk.
This game becomes a chilling interrogation.
Seth sinks balls rapidly, asking biographical details. Does Mason work? Subway, not restaurant. Why he stopped drinking? Gets him in trouble. If he tried to kill himself? Nope.
When asked his last name, Mason hesitates, saying Dubisee.
Which isn't his real name, presumably. Seth presses on. How long have you been a drug addict, drunk, Lucy, gambler, fucking pussy?
Mason answers, about 5 years.
Seth sinks the 8-ball, ending the game, and asks the question that seems to unlock everything. Who's the man in the black helmet?
Then Mason immediately passes out or is knocked out.
Just boom,
Yeah.
gone. Mason's realization after this is that Seth knows too much, feeling he was ghosted at pool by Seth's sudden actions and disappearance.
This encounter leads to the discovery of the Book of Handyman, Seth's notebook. And the content is, well, it's horrific.
Yeah, truly disturbing. Seth recounts learning the SCALP acronym and graphically describes his scalp being removed after an injury, put in a Ziploc bag and cardboard box, which a guard mistook for medication.
He fantasizes about scalping the guard, thinking how fun that would be. He imagines Larry the fat bitch, his counselor, reading the journal.
But the passages detailing violent sexual fantasies and acts are truly disturbing. Beating a crossing guard's daughter with her shoes, raping a girl with red socks, tying a boy named Jeffrey to a furnace, peeing on him for 3 days, raping him while eating strawberries and drinking gin.
It's sickening. The text notes, disturbingly, that Seth expresses sorrow for someone named Sissy within the same notebook.
That juxtaposition is jarring. Seth's view of Mason in the notebook is equally terrifying. My lucky star, my resurrection, someone who will save him.
And it culminates in Seth's explicit demands and threats written directly to Mason: kill Dr. Francis within 72 hours.
The penalty for failure. Seth will send authorities details of Mason's business and hunt down Willy to use her chillingly writing, "I'd love to ride a crippled mare."
That specific phrase is just vile.
This notebook is the ultimate reveal of Seth's depravity and connects him directly to Mason's vulnerabilities, his past actions, and his connection to Willy. It transforms the narrative from one of personal struggle to one of immediate external danger.
The text also includes a scene where Mason returns to the cave and runs into a coat rack, crashing down while others laugh.
Right, another moment of physical comedy mixed with something darker.
He sees a man in a black helmet battling on a pool table, swinging a cue like a lightsaber. Mason thinks right on and passes out again.
Later, finding Seth's notebook confirms this man was Seth Handyman, tying the violent image to the terrifying person. It clicks into place.
This confrontation and the horrifying demands in Seth's notebook push Mason towards seeking help, specifically from the doctor he's been seeing.
Dr. Francis.
Right. We see Mason make some initial attempts at getting clean or changing his behavior during this period. He's drinking vodka milkshakes.
Vodka milkshakes, okay.
His heart rate spiking around fat girls at Hovey's, searching for Circe and the Stallion, a horse he stole from Sissy's father.
Ah, the horse canal.
Finding it in a poetry collection, phoning the author, returning to the old Jackson Bridge on Lakeshore, feeling overwhelmed by nature's beauty while thinking of Warren.
There's this oscillation between seeking oblivion and glimpses of beauty or connection. He encounters Dr. Francis outside the MHAD building. He waves, she glares. He calls her his addictions doctor and notes her seriousness.
But even as he contemplates help, he uses coke to carry Willy upstairs, justifying it as a matter of safety, feeling unstoppable, strong, focused.
It highlights how deeply ingrained his substance use is, even when trying to do something good. The addiction overrides the intention.
Willy shares a crucial story about Dr. Francis that recontextualizes her severity. After Willy's friend Bethany sold her wheelchair and abandoned her, Dr. Francis found Willy totally bugging out.
Right. Instead of emergency services, Dr. Francis went to Regent Park, scored smack, shot me up, and then called an ambulance.
Willy says, "That's Dr. Francis. She can do stuff like that."
Mason, despite the clear rule-breaking, thinks he's in good hands.
It paints Dr. Francis as someone who operates outside the system, using her understanding of addiction and the streets to intervene drastically, maybe dangerously.
Yeah, it's a complex picture. Mason visits Dr. Francis's office, admitting he hasn't been writing or sober. She asks about sleep, dreams, coke dreams,
Assigns him to write about one.
and assigns him to write about one. She probes about Sissy, asking if she's the friend who killed herself, and notes Mason's use of humor in person contrasts with the sadness that emerges in his writing.
She points to notes in a book, Access is Everything, Sylvia Plath, gas oven, suicide rate drop, and mentions Soon's warped interpretation of this as a call to artists, destiny, the mother of all grant applications.
This shows how the same information can be twisted through different lenses of trauma and ambition. It's chilling how Soon interpreted that.
Mason gives Dr. Francis his confession from the Book of Sobriety. He confesses not being sober, stealing the word inspire to breathe life into from someone likely dead, and doing the opposite, stealing breath from 14 swallows, one horse, a few human beings.
Wow, that's heavy.
He expresses remorse and cowardice, pussy, admits he was part of Soon's fraud, stating, "This fucking writing is a deadly pursuit."
Doesn't mince words there.
He asks if Dr. Francis needs to know about Willy and confesses liking her for dishonorable reasons, breasts, mouth, drugs, brokenness, but clarifies he didn't plan to hurt her. It's a raw, self-lacerating piece of writing.
Dr. Francis's assessment is blunt. You're fucked up and haunted, but not by what you think you are.
Oof, that's a statement.
She tells him he has a chance if you ever get clean and calls him ghosted.
She pushes him on his understanding of suicide, asking if he related or just didn't care. She uses a patient example, an Asian girl with green shoes, who self-harms drastically after talking to her mother, who pimped her out.
Dr. Francis insists this patient is not suicidal. Concluding, Mason don't get to be, implying his focus on his own trauma isn't the same as genuine suicidal ideation.
This is a harsh dose of reality, challenging Mason's self-perception and placing his struggles in the context of more profound, perhaps less self-aware, suffering.
Seems like it. She mentions another patient as why she loves her job, hinting at success stories despite the darkness.
And she reveals the immediate threat. Seth broke into her office, stole Mason's file, the notebook, and his confession.
So Seth has everything.
Seth should be locked up, she says, and suggests doing this ourselves, implying they need to take action against Seth outside of calling the police.
Taking matters into their own hands. Later, on the viaduct with Mason, Dr. Francis talks about ghosts, arguing most people have them and they're necessary to be fully human.
Interesting perspective.
She contrasts Mason with Seth, who had no conflict because he always knew what he wanted. She believes she and Mason ghosted Seth by removing his libido and cravings, making him ineffectual, barely an idea.
So, turning the tables on him, in a way. She asks Mason if there's a difference between being ghosted and having ghosts inside you.
This frames their conflict with Seth not just as a physical threat, but as a battle on a psychological or even spiritual level about what constitutes a complete, albeit troubled, human being.
This leads into the final sequences presented in these pages, where the tension peaks. Mason attempts a new, sober life. Alarm set, waking before 9, regular meals, exercise, abstinence from drugs, gambling, booze.
For now, it says.
Right, for now. Looking for a job. He calls Dr. Francis.
We see Dr. Francis at the Sherburne shelter. Mason's internal description is powerful. A hospital in an old war movie. The inhabitants fighting a war against poverty, addiction, violence, trauma, disease.
He lists the brutal realities. Crack, Lysol, smack, residential schools, jails, mental illnesses, rage, isolation, losing loved ones, nothing changing, no one to depend on, suicide.
It's a devastating portrait.
He feels he barely dodged the draft.
Yeah. While there, Dr. Francis talks to Wilf, who says she saved his life during an allergic reaction that left him legally dead. She gave him a shot.
Reinforcing her unconventional methods, Dr. Francis shows Mason a map with a red dot, Seth Handyman's location at Spadina and College, right near Mason's apartment.
So he's close. She repeats, satisfaction is in the asking, not the answer.
Back on the Bloor Viaduct, where Dr. Francis discusses ghosts, the text mentions the Bridge of Hope cables and crosses, and the 20-foot section still open.
Mason leans against the wall, looking at the skyline, and asks Dr. Francis if she has ghosts. It's a moment of seeking connection and understanding from her.
Mason visits Chaz in a hospital or detention setting, QT room. Chaz looks like someone strange.
Chaz reveals Uncle Fishy was the snitch who got them caught. The dogmobile, in Mason's name, is where the police found the stuff. Fishy kept the family buildings by trading Mason, guns, and drugs.
So Mason was the fall guy.
Pretty much. Chaz mentions Tenor, who called them kids, was complex and crazy, told Chaz not to be a stoolie, but said it was more important that he knew what a good guy you'd be, referring to Mason.
Even in this downfall, there's a strange validation of Mason. It's bizarre.
Detective Flores picks Mason up. Flores mentions a complaint about Mason kidnapping a hemiplegic girl matching the description Mason gave Flores.
But Flores knows the woman who complained is known to us, suggesting she's unreliable or tied into their world.
Flores acknowledges their history. Me and you, we've had our share of run-ins, and implies Mason is one of the people who go down in this job.
Mason returns to his apartment, feels the sense of someone waiting is gone. It's empty.
He has an internal note or monologue looking for Willy, searching places like Regent Park and women's shelters that won't talk to men. His body is screaming for drugs and booze.
This search connects back to Seth's threat to hunt Willy. Mason goes to the cave to confront Seth.
Seth is there with Chaz behind the bar, and the kite man. Seth mentions Chaz broke his nose with a motorcycle helmet.
He reveals his face. Mason sees staples and injuries on his head and realizes Seth is the man in the black helmet. It all clicks.
The final poker game with Seth begins. Mason feels nausea, anger. Seth's hat still hides his eyes. Seth introduces himself. Mason repeats, Mason Dubisee.
They play pool for the truth. Seth rapidly asks the same questions as before. Work, drinking, suicide attempt, last name, Dubisee. How long he's been a drug addict, drunk gambler pussy. About 5 years.
Seth sinks the 8 ball and asks again, Who's the man in the black helmet?
And Mason passes out again, confirming this is the recurring point of his collapse.
This connects back to the scene where Mason woke after hitting the coat rack, seeing the man in the black helmet battling on the pool table, confirming Seth was that figure.
Mason comes to again in the QT room, the cave within the cave, face wet with beer. Chaz is there saying, "Let's go, Dorothy, time to get out."
He finds Seth's note again. It confirms Seth knows Mason's and Dr. Francis's sins, calls Mason a fucked up hack, repeats the demand to kill Dr. Francis within 72 hours.
And renews the threat against Willy. "I'd love to ride a crippled mare."
He warns Mason to write his own suicide letter, bring the notebook next time, or be ready to fight. The stakes are incredibly high.
Dr. Francis, now at the hospital, shows Mason Seth's location again on a map. Just then, the red dot flashes, and Seth's location changes.
Suggesting their intervention was successful in displacing him, or he's on the move.
Could be. We see Willy in a hospital bed. Mason knows she will never leave this room. She is happy about her injured side, saying it got what it deserved.
Mason feels blown apart by the finality of this. He cries and tells her his birth story about his father, Johnny Walker Joe, and the champagne bottle.
After Willy is gone, Mason has an internal monologue where he hears Willy's voice, calling him insane, stuck, asking the date, saying nothing is there, calling the room a place where things get broken.
And stating the story is over when the room is empty. Grim.
But then a flicker of resilience. Mason thinks regrets turn into skills.
Interesting thought. He gets up, notes his limp is almost gone. He finds Chaz's motorcycle outside the QT room alley. He passes the QT room, calls it a cave within the cave never to be opened, imagining everything inside. He gets on the bike.
He then seeks crack from Wilf and others near the shelter, referring to them as Franny's friend.
The physical description of the crack-taking effect is visceral. He grows stronger, fog lifts, heartbeat quickens, lungs expand with cocaine breath, blood rushes, a return to old patterns for strength.
Seems like it. Mason is back on the viaduct with Dr. Francis. Seemingly at a later point, she believes he has a brain injury.
She explains why she worries when patients leave abusers, overdose, hanging, suicide, because suddenly it's quiet, no one to beat them up but themselves.
That's a powerful insight. She tells Mason he's good at saving people if he gets down from there, but he isn't saving anyone now.
We get moments that feel like flashbacks or memories. A scene at the library, the girl with green shoes, Constance, looking for the man from Snowy River, meeting librarian Carolina.
Carolina receives a drawing that says, "You make me feel like Rambo."
The girl falls for Carolina, noting her cat eyes.
Another memory at Hovey's. Mason meets Grace. She orders gin and tonic, tells him to live a little. These fragments add layers, hinting at other potential connections or past selves.
These recurring moments, locations, and symbols really weave the narrative together, don't they?
Absolutely. We've seen how horses appear, from the one Mason stole from Sissy's father to the one he rides in the final scenes, representing a kind of desperate escape or chase.
To Seth's horrifying desire to ride a crippled mare, Willy, and the man from Snowy River story with its image of going over a cliff, they seem to be symbols of mobility, escape, trauma, and violation.
And water and drowning are constant. Mason's need for water, the icy feel, throwing up near water or against cold tiles, thinking of drowning, the invisible lake, Soon's implied drowning.
Mason's dream of water, Willy needing water, swimming with Willy, the incredible weight of going down, the ancient Greeks, Rembrandt statues, Seth's chilling message about going down for the third, fourth, fifth time.
It's tied to physical collapse, cleansing, existential dread, and inescapable descent.
Fire pops up repeatedly as well. Bob Seger's fire lake, Mason lighting cigarettes and candles, brush fires, a chicken aflame, his father's apartment fire, kerosene fire in shelters, glowing embers.
Seth's message about burning air and flames reaching the top window. Fire seems linked to trauma, destruction, the intensity of experience, and things that are consuming or inescapable.
And the core theme of Ghosts and Ghosted. It's the title, Mason being ghosted by Seth, Dr. Francis calling Mason ghosted, discussing needing ghosts to be fully human.
She and Mason ghosting Seth by removing his core drive, Willy living with the ghost of her trauma, Mason listening to the ghosts on the viaduct, his ghost Mason email, the ghost station.
It's about absence, things that linger, internal presences, and perhaps removing or being removed from one's essential nature.
Writing and storytelling are integral to Mason's journey. His novel, Writing on the Couch, Love Letters, Soon's novel and journal, The Morbid Scribe email.
Mason's confession, calling writing a deadly pursuit, Seth's journal where he enjoys writing, Mason's notes, thinking regrets turn to skills.
Willy asking for a story, Mason telling his birth story, always different, always the same. The story being over when the room is empty, imagining the story in the QT room, the drawing for Carolina, Mason's ad.
Writing is both a way to process, a commodity, a dangerous act, and perhaps the only way to impose order or narrative on chaos.
Eyes and seeing are consistently highlighted. Dr. Francis looking at Mason's eyes without looking in. Mason seeing how smart she is, looking through windows.
Seth's hat shadowing his eyes, Mason not getting a fix on them, Seth's eyes flicking, Mason not liking what he saw on them, Seth pushing back his hat to look.
Dr. Francis's clear eyes blazing, looking through the looking glass at the QT room. The girl with green shoes eyes, Carolina's cat eyes.
Seeing is linked to understanding, confrontation, concealment, and the inability to truly know others or oneself.
Gambling is another thread woven throughout. The poker evidence, Mason losing to Chaz. His debts, poker chips, specific bets, Mason winning with eights.
Gambling is one of his core issues, Seth calling it one of his sins. The bliss of gambling alongside adrenaline, horseback, and drugs, the viaduct victim Constable Rick Terrain losing money and jumping, Mason playing pool for truth.
Gambling represents chance, debt, risk, and a destructive pursuit of adrenaline or escape.
And of course, addiction, drugs, and alcohol are fundamental to Mason's state. Johnny Walker Black, coke, residue, Mason doing lines, his severe hangover, the clinic, coke dreams.
Confessing not being sober, vodka milkshakes, seeking crack, the cocaine breath, being an addict drunk for 5 years, Dr. Francis's assessment, scoring smack for Willy, Willy's proclivity, Mason smoking heroin.
It's presented not just as a habit, but as a core driver of action, a justification, a physical and mental state that warps reality.
Specific music acts almost like narrative landmarks or emotional cues. Bob Seger's Fire Lake constantly present Billy Idol, The Animals, Simple Minds, Phil Collins for the Seth meeting, Springsteen, The Guess Who.
The violent femmes during Willy's traumatic story, Barry White. Music is always there.
And the key locations that feel weighted with meaning. The Dogmobile, this absurd vehicle tied to Mason's debts and the stuff.
The Cave, Chaz's bar, a place of encounters, violence, and hidden spaces, and the mysterious death. The QT room within the cave, where Mason comes to, sees unsettling images, feels broken, and vows never to return.
And the central recurring location, the viaduct, is presented as a place of beauty, despair, death, survival, historical trauma, intervention, and Dr. Francis's final conversation with Mason.
So looking at the ending as presented in these specific excerpts, we see Mason waking in the QT room, feeling the physical and emotional weight of it, seeing Chaz and Dr. Francis.
Hearing Bob Seger and Chaz telling the horse story. Dr. Francis calls him ghosted. He destroys the intercom and then hears Willy's voice, "Come here to me," going to her beneath the sheet.
There's a jump in time, and Mason gets sober for the longest time, sneaking out to record Bob Seger.
Dr. Francis confirms Seth stole his file in confession and suggests taking action against Seth themselves. She challenges his understanding of suicide, using the self-harming patient as an example.
Mason returns to his apartment, feels the emptiness, and searches for Willy in shelters. Seth is located on the map at Spadina and College.
We see Willy in the hospital bed. Mason knows she won't leave. She's happy about her injured side. Mason feels blown apart, cries, and tells her his birth story.
After she's gone, there's the internal voice thought calling him insane, asking the date, saying nothing is there, the room is a place where things get broken, the story is over when the room is empty.
But then that thought about regrets turning to skills.
Yeah.
He gets up, his limp nearly gone. He finds Chaz's motorcycle near the QT room alley.
Passes the QT room, imagines everything inside, and gets on the bike.
He then seeks crack near the shelter, experiences the physical rush of getting stronger.
He's back on the viaduct with Dr. Francis later. She suggests he has a brain injury, talks about patients leaving abusers and Mason being good at saving people if he gets down from there.
Flores has a final conversation, mentioning the kidnapping complaint, knowing the woman is unreliable, confirming Seth hired Mason but doesn't know where Seth is now.
Notes Sissy isn't mentioned, gives details about soon. A nurse announces Willy is awake.
Mason goes to Willy's hospital room again. Doctors, police are there. He tells her he loves her, she knows she loves him, is happy about her side. He feels blown apart, knows she won't leave, tells his birth story, crying.
And again, the internal voice thought repeats the same phrases. Insane, stuck, nothing there, story over when room empty, place where things get broken.
And again, Mason thinks regrets turn to skills. He leaves the hospital and finds Chaz's motorcycle.
The author's note provides context on Shaughnessy Bishopstall's background in nonfiction exploring similar themes, noting this is his first novel.
So we've gone through these pages tracking Mason's intense struggles with addiction, his disturbing encounters with characters like Soon and Seth Handyman, and his attempts to find some kind of path through this bizarre, often brutal reality.
All within the specific narrative world you've provided.
Yeah. It's a world where the very real landscape of Toronto intersects with deep psychological trauma, where symbols like horses, water, fire, and ghosts are woven into the fabric of the story.
And where the act of writing itself is fraught with danger and potential meaning.
And remember, our deep dive is focused only on the story and details presented in these specific excerpts you shared. We've tried to illuminate the narrative facts and the potential layers of meaning within this contained text.
It leaves us with some complex ideas to consider. The text repeatedly returns to the idea of ghosts and things that linger. Dr. Francis suggests needing ghosts is part of being fully human.
And it starkly contrasts the story's characters tell themselves, like Soon's artistic suicide concept or Mason's early resolutions, with the harsh, often inescapable realities presented.
So based on these pages, what does it truly mean to be ghosted? Is it just about absence, or is it about carrying a necessary internal presence?
And in a world filled with such disturbing facts and cycles of trauma, what kind of story, if any, provides a genuine way forward? What could regrets turn into skills possibly mean in this context?